I'm Carolina Sarassa, and thank you for being with us today. And today is a decisive day for thousands of dreamers. This morning, the Supreme Court heard arguments on the future of DACA. That's the program that protects almost 700,000 young undocumented people from deportation. The justices will spend the next few months determining whether the Trump administration can cancel that program. Lorraine Cáceres is in Washington, D.C. with the latest. Lorraine, the arguments are over. Lorraine, for that information live from Washington, D.C. And as the Supreme Court justices weigh in on the DACA program, dreamers and their allies around the country have been making their voices heard. Aileen Cardet has the story of one group of activists who walked from New York to D.C. in support of that program. Meanwhile, President Trump tweeted today that many of the immigrants dubbed dreamers are, quote, hard and crazy. Let's go to Rachel Rosenblum. And at the Supreme Court, it is not just about DACA today. The High Court is also hearing arguments in almost a decade-old case involving a Mexican teenager who was killed by U.S. agents while playing on the Mexican side of the U.S.-Mexico border. Now on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are getting ready for the first live public hearings on the impeachment inquiry, which are set to start Wednesday. Aranza Loizaga breaks down what we can expect to see and to hear. Loizaga for that report, and President Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, while House Republicans used a detailed memo drafted to GOP members of all three committees outlining their defense of President Trump. After this week, lawmakers expect at least one more week of public hearings. Now, another top story we are following: heavy snow, freezing rain, and cold temperatures spreading across several states, with a line of storms stretching from Texas to Maine, potentially affecting 65 million Americans. Some areas are bracing for temperatures to drop close to zero. Roger Borges has the latest. And dangerous weather conditions in Chicago caused a plane to slide off the runway at O'Hare Airport Monday. And welcome back to Unews. President Jimmy Carter is recovering following a surgery on a subdural hematoma. The Carter Center says the procedure was complicated. In New Hampshire shows former Vice President Joe Biden holding a narrow lead in the race for the now to immigration news. Along the Arizona border with Mexico, the U.S. government is testing out a facial recognition program at two ports of entry, scanning the faces of every single person crossing over by foot. Dulce Mascareño takes a look at what CBP hopes to achieve with the new rollout. And privacy advocates frequently express concerns about government use of facial recognition technology, citing a poor track record when it comes to distinguishing people of color, along with privacy threats. The Trump administration is trying to significantly raise the price of securing U.S. citizenship, along with a host of other proposed immigration fee increases. The move has some wondering if the changes are yet another way to target immigrants. Luis Mejid has the details. And turning to the economy, finance experts say the middle class seems to be developing a dependence on a type of credit that could lead to the accumulation of debt. Peggy Carranza has the details.
Argue that higher interest rates are needed to counter consumer default. In New York City, Peggy Carranza, Unews.
Thank you, Peggy. When we come back, 8 students have died at the University of Southern California since the end of August, a number that is shocking to many in the college community. School officials are now trying to clear up some of the rumors and offer support to the student body. Michelle Jurado has more details. Authorities in Florida are investigating the death of an Oklahoma police officer. Deputies. And now to a tragedy in Arizona. A 14-year-old boy who was stabbed to death outside his home on Friday night. Police are still looking for 3 people they say are connected to the killing. Jorge Hernandez has more on the victim and what neighbors believe happened. A father in Oklahoma is speaking out about his son's recovery after the boy's mother allegedly faked their son's illness and gave him drugs he never needed. Paola Byron has more. A Virginia doctor is under arrest, accused of performing hysterectomies and other unnecessary medical procedures on patients without their consent. Grecia Lastra has the disturbing details. Affidavit notes the doctor has been the subject of at least 8 malpractice lawsuits. It also said he lost hospital privileges in Virginia for performing unnecessary surgeries and poor clinical judgment. And coming up as well, now to the ongoing demonstrations in Hong Kong. This morning, tensions increasing after violent clashes between protesters and police. Rafael Rodriguez has the latest. And after the break, a look at 1,000 pounds of meat following a possible listeria contamination. Here's a question. Are you getting enough sleep? As we all know, sleep is an essential part of our lives and our body's ability to recharge and repair itself. Those who struggle to get a good night's sleep could be at risk of some serious illness down the road. Sabrina Alvarez has more. Those are good recommendations. Thank you, Sabrina. And after the break, we have the story of in California's wine country when Mexican-American families breaking barriers with their award-winning wines. The Ceja family went from picking grapes to owning their very own winery in Napa. Azur Alvarez has a closer look at their story. We love seeing those stories of immigrants who come to this country and now they're so successful. But finally today, with the holiday travel season ramping up, flying can be especially stressful. But a 13-pound cat named Stitches is helping here at Unews. Thank you for watching. Hasta mañana and thank you.